Hello. Alright, so we're going to be doing another Fire Emblem Sacred Stones playthrough. We're going to be doing it on difficult mode. The parameters for gameplay are going to be focused on what I spoke about in my Amelia video, in which I would like to thank all of you for checking it out if you were watching it from that reference point, or maybe the Reddit post or any other place where I shared the video. The object will be to not use the tower, the arena, skirmishes, or just supplementary ways of earning EXP in order to grow our units. And I will also be making like small, or I will be trying to make these sections into like videos where I can talk about points leading up to the inevitable Amelia video R2, or revised opinions on how I think she is why I think units should be rated differently, and why I think she is a good unit for different ways to play. And the first point I want to attack is the issue that the community has with the overwhelming, or I should say prevailing idea of personal experience means nothing. Before I speak on that, I'm going to be using Seth as little as possible. This is pre-recorded footage. I probably should have did this commentary while I was playing, but I decided against it because not all of my ideas were well thought out. I'm still doing a lot of research into the community at large and the bigger ideas with some varying modes of success. I go and immediately attack this Axe Knight because it's kind of a toss-up whether or not she's going to complete this by herself, because I don't really want to give Seth EXP, because I would like Erica to do a lot of the growing early on so I can like just use her, because I like using Erica. And I think that she is a good unit if you give her a chance to grow in certain areas. And she's pretty adept at fighting X-Fighters. But there's a really high chance that she can die pretty easily. And I take the risky route of just bum rushing headfirst into these X guys. Right now she's kind of in danger of being KO'd by the boss, but she'll be okay. Alright, to go back to the point of personal experience means nothing, someone surmised or summarized this, several people have, but I found a really good set of comments by someone in Mengs's Discord channel named Rathilal. His first point is that Fire Emblem is a game founded in RNG, where said RNG is influenced by hard numbers like base numbers, class, and weapons. That's good. That's a good point. Second point is that growths and the way the game is built means that no two people's units are the same in a given playthrough, but on average a unit will be of a certain usefulness, since aspects of their kit never change and their growths, when plotted out over thousands of playthroughs, will hit a certain average. This is an interesting point to bring up, because when I asked him if that had actually been done, and yay, we finished prologue chapter. When I had asked him if that had actually been done, he told me no one's actually done thousands of playthroughs of the game and logged it as like hard numbers. It's all theoretical. And I think that that is pretty disingenuous to how the game is played, because a lot of what's going on in the game is RNG based. So that means that a lot of your planning and strategic devising of whatever you're going to do, unless you're manipulating the RNG, is going to be beholden to that RNG. So therefore your personal experience is going to carry whether you're a more experienced player, or you're a novice player, or you play with a more quote fingers casual or quote fingers optimal playstyle, meaning that you try to finish the game as quickly and as safely as possible, using methods and strategies that involve the least amount of risk. I think that, or actually I know that all of that clout around what those players that have done the math and those players that have enacted strategies and plans on those theories will have personal experiences that either reaffirm or deconfirm what you can do with that information. Yeah, that was a pretty decent level up. She got some defense and skill. More HP is never a bad thing. Also, I'm using the steel sword because I want to save the charges on the rapier, so that when I need it in a pinch, it is there. I'm not gonna not use the rapier ever, but I do kind of want to have a balance of tools in my kit. Having a in my opinion, having a well-rounded arsenal of weapons is best, because I never know what I want to do. If I want to outright kill someone, whether I need the double, or I take a chance at getting a crit, or if I don't want to kill and I want to feed it to another unit, which I'll be doing later on, I like having that malleability. I think that is a really good way of playing the game. And I used Gilliam to do a little trade with him, giving him access to the iron sword instead of the iron lance, which that axe user would have taken full control over, and abused that to possibly nick Franz. Don't know how much more damage he would have did, because I think being at a weapon triangle disadvantage also makes it so that you have that you take more damage. Do not quote me on that. I need to actually put that into practice. Okay, so going back to his point, actually going to see about what I'm doing here. I'm just going to go ahead and attack the soldiers because they pose like no threat at all. And Erica's going to be pretty fine. I'm going to put her in the fort, and she's going to hold down that point while the reinforcements come and try to get her. I also forgot to mention that another thing I'm going to be doing is routing as many, if not all, enemies on screen. That is also an objective that we're going to be trying to accomplish. Alright, the next point is, this means assessing units by personal experiences as is an inconsistent metric for judging gameplay performance, and Radiant Dawn, and Edward, who gets a lot of strength, speed, and defense in his early levels, is an incredibly good unit. But one who doesn't, or even just levels his averages, is essentially a deadweight in later chapters. By comparison, somebody like Soth doesn't need to gain many levels or good RNG in combat to be useful, so he's an immensely better unit due to his consistency. This is also why Jagans are generally the best units in the game, among other things. And I counter this by saying that Edward, who was good in that one playthrough, is a good unit in that playthrough. There should be a sliding metric of if a unit meets, is lower than, or is greater than their growths, that would mean that that unit would be more useful for certain strategies, for certain optimal playstyles, for casual. I would also like to redefine what casual means, since we have a lot more members, people playing Fire Emblem in general, and different play modes that are dictating how the games should be played. In the older Fire Emblem games, there was a very heavy emphasis on permadeath. In some chapters, I believe there were chapters where you just had to kill a unit. And, ooh, Franz is kind of in trouble right now. I believe he gets hit by the other X user. And, yeah, this is kind of... I could have used Seth to kill the other X user, but I'm so stubborn about wanting to level him up as quickly as possible so I can use Franz as a damage tank for the upcoming Joshua chapter, that I just go ahead and start rolling my RNG dice early, if it will. Yes, I know it was not optimal, and I should have used Seth to kill that other brigand, but I found this a little bit more invigorating. Although I fully accept the fact that that was not an optimal strategy. Next, I'm going to send Erica to fight the Armor Knight, because it's just something I generally do. I like to give her this EXP. Though I think Gilliam and Seth are much better at fighting the Armor Knight. Franz is kind of so-so. He can still take a lot of damage by getting hit. And it's kind of not as reliable, kind of like Erica here. But, I don't know. He still does, like... Erica and him are kind of on the same tier for me for this fight. And here, I move her back because I don't know how much the Vulnerary is going to heal her. So I'm kind of scared for her life, so I move her back. I kind of forget that he only does 12 damage, and it healed her for 16. And I'm still panicking again, so I use the Vulnerary again. And sit her there so she's at full HP. And I do something incredibly risky that you're going to see in the coming rounds. Alright, so going back to what I was talking about before, he says that the unit that he got in his playthrough that had good RNG was better for him in the long run because he was able to utilize him for different strategies. Therefore, throughout that playthrough, he was like a far superior unit than he would be on average, theoretically. This has not actually been proven the case. And he admits, as I think I said before, that no one has ever actually done the math, so it is only ever theoretical that he will actually reach those averages. It's actually pretty uncommon for units to simply hit their average benchmarks. It's just a very general guideline, and you should never use that as just a black and white, this is a good unit because their growths are bad or good, and this is a bad unit because their growths are good or bad. Here, we made chapter 2, and I immediately rescue Ross with Vanessa, and I'm going to use, I believe, Seth to go to one of the villages. I send Mulder to one of the villages to get an elixir, which is fine. And enemy phase. This is a pretty tricky map. Sometimes I kill the boss before I'm able to kill the brigands who spawn in the mountains. But I think I pull off a pretty decent strategy to not only give Ross the levels that he needs, because I would like to have him up to par as quickly as possible, these next two upcoming chapters, but I would also like to just overall have everyone that I plan on using in like the main party. Thinking ahead, I think my main focuses are going to be on Erica, Franz, Ross, Nimi Colm, and I think I might have Arthur on the team over Loot, but we'll see. I'm pretty sure I'm leaning towards Arthur, but we'll see. Right now, the strategy is just to like get everybody into position so that we can already start our formation of both letting him get kills, but also letting them get some experience with leveling up their ranks and everything like that. Alright. I also bought a bunch of Slim Swords because, like I said before, having a really thoroughly balanced array of weaponry means that I can do things I normally couldn't, like doing enough damage to these brigands so that I don't kill them, either by doubling them so that their HP is super low, hitting them once so that their HP is at a certain threshold, or outright killing them in case something goes horribly wrong. Alright, again, going back to I think I kind of made my point pretty clear that there should be a spectrum of unit who will be good if he gets past certain benchmarks because of how the game is structured around that character. If there's a character you get at the beginning of the game who is, I believe the term is an Oifi, which is a pre-promoted unit you get at the beginning of the game, who is very, very powerful all throughout the game, That unit's going to be useful and good just in general, all throughout your gameplay, your playthrough. And I believe Jagan is the archetype in which you have an early unit who starts out incredibly powerful, but he kind of falls off, if not becomes kind of irrelevant or less optimal the longer or the farther into the game you get. Here I'm going to use Vanessa to get that town over there and basically bait the archers into fighting Gilliam so that I have them kind of at bay while the other units are going around. And I guess Ross's dad is just doing his thing over there. The next point I would like to go through is he says, anecdotes about gameplay are just too subjective and often lack enough detail. While you can say my Amelia tanked all the enemies, in the throne room of chapter 16 in Sacred Stones, she's so good, you will have omitted you grinded her in the tower and promoted her before said chapter, got multiple lucky dodges versus the druids that Amelia wouldn't have dodged on average, and said Amelia was also above average in her stats. So yes, this is true. This is something that you can also use in reverse. You can also have all of your stats laid out, such as saying Amelia on average will dodge all druids. Amelia on average will have these stats. Amelia on average would not be used to use the tower and get promoted because it's not optimal, and on average she is not good. But you can say that all of that in practice is the exact opposite. So which one are you actually going to use? Are you going to use the theoretical point, or are you going to use what actually happened in your playthrough? Granted, he is right in saying that a lot of the information is pretty vague, and just the anecdote itself is not useful by itself without like hard reference point. It's just your word, and if you're not a very credible like member of the community, it's probably not going to go anywhere. But if you do have like credible proof, or like a playthrough, or screenshots, or the screenshots are kind of so-so, and I guess even gameplay would be kind of so-so at this point because people can rig RNG and things like that, but generally you don't really want to have that much clout about what you can and can't believe. That is an amazing level up. Holy crap. I did not rig RNG. I know I just was talking about that, but I did not rig that. That was just an amazing level up. Okay. I would also say that simply saying that you did things like give a unit more EXP is not a case against them, because any unit you plan on using, whether good or bad, is going to need EXP to roll the dice so that they can get better. So saying that you use the tower or any other means to level up your character is kind of a misnomer. It depends on how much it is impeding on standard gameplay, how much it is impeding on whatever challenge you're trying to stay withholden to during your gameplay session, like what parameters you're using. If you're using the LTC or speedrunner or just optimal end quote finger strats of just playing fast and safely, then yes, going to the tower and things like that is generally looked down upon and would actually impede just standard gameplay. Even though I would also argue that that is like mechanics in the game that you can use. So therefore it would kind of be silly to not call it standard gameplay. It's basically being picky about what you call things that are and are not limited to what we would call standard gameplay. So if your route does allow you to use the tower, then that would be something that the game allows you to do that you don't have to hack or glitch or anything like that to do. But even then, it's kind of... it's really hard to judge things like glitches and things you have to go out of your way to do to perform, and then say, is it optimal, is it not optimal, should it be allowed, should it not be allowed? Because there are a lot of games that use glitches in order to create an optimal setting. Combos in fighting games were a glitch. It was not supposed to be in the game, but people took it and ran with it and made it like a standard part of gameplay because it enhanced the skill cap of the game. Using things like the tower is the inverse. You're not really using the game at its core to enhance your strategies or your play style or memorizing enemy placement and EXP numbers. You just kind of, you have infinite resources to use and give yourself. But if the game allows you to do that, then why is it beholden to us to give the game those standards? And I would say it just depends on what the community at large calls, I guess, that standard of gameplay. And I would say that the standard of gameplay in general kind of needs to be revised so that the standard of gameplay includes everything that should be, like, it's kind of hard to give words to this, but the standard of gameplay should give more credence to styles of play that have skill caps that are agreed upon, that don't have to deal with RNG or cheese or I guess a Fire Emblem, like the spirit of Fire Emblem in general should not come into question when you come up with these parameters of gameplay. I would also say that I kind of take a risk here and try to get this kill with Vanessa, and she succeeds, thank goodness. If she didn't, she would have been in hot water. Not too much hot water. If she got hit, I would have used Molder to heal her, and then the brigand would have tried to hit her again, and yeah, it would have been fine. Fortunately, that didn't happen. He's going for her. She has the Iron Sword on, and even if she doubles, she won't kill him. Easy EXP for him. Alright, so the next point is to say, he says, that isn't to say that in-game practice isn't a useful way of judging units, though. Vanessa is very good in Sacred Stones Chapter 2 because she basically guarantees Ross and Garcia can be recruited without any chance of death. This is different from the Amelia case because it's 100% replicable and can be done no matter how different your game in Sacred Stones is. And I would... he keeps going on with that point, but I would like to counter by saying that you could, in fact, rescue Garcia and Ross, and it is 100% replicable without the usage of Vanessa. It would just count on the RNG of the units attacking them both in the area that they start in. Though you would be completely reliant on Seth with his high mobility to circle around and hoping that Garcia kills the enemy and that Ross dodges the enemy by like walking to the fort or something like that. Replacing Amelia, however, that is not 100% replicable depending on how you're playing the game. If you're playing the game in a way that is similar to the early games, meaning that you're trying to you're letting your units die at a rate that... Oh, no. What I'm trying to say. trying to say that in the spirit of the old games, the permadeath mechanic would actually hold more weight because you would not be allowed to restart. That is what I'm trying to say. So that if all of your mounted units were to suddenly die off, she would be not beholden unto the fact that she needs to not catch up with everybody else, but literally be the only other mounted unit that you have to play with, and that you would be forced into devising strategies around growing her as your new mounted unit because your other mounted units have died. And with that, the chapter 3 has ended, and I want to stop it here and say, if anybody decided to check this out, thank you, and I hope that I'm making my points pretty clear and concise, and I will continue with my summaries and analysis of what I have discovered so far to strengthen my argument against why I think using these units are beneficial towards molding the meta around what is and isn't the correct way to play Fire Emblem efficiently. Thank you.